Welcome back to Seven Figure Flipping Podcast, part 3 in this series. We're talking about return on equity today. It's super exciting because this is something that mid to experienced investors get an opportunity to pull out some cash and put it into other things. And they have to learn how to evaluate whether or not that is the right move. So in the first episode, we did a negative cash flow example where you got a house for free, but you would have to come out of pocket every month. For this example, I want to use a positive cash flow example. Let's say you got the house for free because you bought it cheap, you refinanced all your money out of it, and it nets $500 a month or $6,000 a year. That's a really, really strong rental. Now, if you're netting $6,000 a year, you buy a house for $100,000, you put $50,000 into it, and it's worth $300,000. You pull all your money back out of it. You do a rate and term, so you don't pull any extra cash. You just get a loan for paying off your first lender, and you have a loan for $150,000. That means if the house is worth $300,000, you have $150,000 in equity. Now, in this case, that would be a home run deal from a cash flow perspective. Let's say it rents for $3,000 a month. Your mortgage is $1,000. Like you're making hand over fist money. We'll use $500 of net cash flow. So that's gross income or rents minus principal, interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance and repairs, capital expenditures, vacancy, and property management. That's your net cash flow. That number is $500 or $6,000 a year. You have $150,000 in equity. Right now, your cash on cash return is infinite because you have no money into it. But if you had $10,000 into it and you were getting $6,000 of net cash flow, 6,000 divided by the $10,000 of cash you have into it is a literal 60% cash on cash return. It would be an insane home run. From that metric, you would say, wow, I actually love this property. I'm making 60% on my money. Now, over time, that's not going to be the case. Your maintenance and repairs will go up. Maybe your rents don't go up. It will start to degrade on that. Your equity, however, is likely to go up because your debt gets paid down on that property. Let's say you're 15 years into owning that property, you've made a ton of cash flow on it, and you would say, why would I ever sell this property? But let's say you have $200,000 of equity now in this $300,000 property, maybe more, but we'll go with $200,000. You have to calculate your return on equity. So in this case, if you're netting $6,000 a month and you divide that by $200,000 of equity, your return on equity is only 3%, even though your cash on cash return is insane. So the money you put in compared to the money you're getting out on an annual basis is great. However, the equity, that capital in there, that $200,000, you're only getting a 3% return. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, if I sell this property and I recoup that $200,000, can I get better than a 3% return? I did this with two of my properties from early on that I was getting $400 in net cash flow on one and $700 on another, but I had a ton of equity and my return on equity was like less than 5%. So an opportunity came up for me to buy equity in a business that was going to be projected to be an insane return on my money. I would put a couple $100,000 in and get $50,000 to $100,000 a year back. So that is a way, way, way better return on that equity. So I decided to sell that property and replace that capital and put it into another investment that paid me more money. Okay, so we went through three analytical lenses. The first one is simply how much capital am I leaving in there? How much equity am I going to have? Is this going to be a wealth builder for me? The second one is cash flow. Can I cover the debt on this thing? Am I going to have to come out of pocket? Am I going to make net money? What's my cash on cash return going to look like? And then the third and final one that we talked about in this series is return on equity. Once that equity grows in that property, how does that compare to the net income that you're getting from it? If that number is low, which typically starts to happen around the 6, 7, 8 year mark, or if the market goes up in bananas, it could happen faster. But over time, that rental may not be the best ever. And we just did a call not too long ago with our friends over at Rent to Retirement, which we'll make sure we drop a link to them. And they said that people are buying their turnkey, brand new build rentals, are staying in those houses on average for 6 or 7 years. And I can tell you that's because the return on equity was no longer worth keeping their money there. So they pulled it out and placed it somewhere else. Thank you for joining me on this 3-part series of Should I Sell or Keep This House? I hope that this was valuable. If it was, I'd like you to like this episode, leave me a 5-star review, share it with a friend. Help me to share good information with people. Thanks for tuning in.